Buy a house, you convert the garage, and then you build another unit in the backyard. And that's like my bread and butter right now of how I'm still finding cash flow. Can't believe you got to go to Richard Branson's island, dude. That's crazy. What was that like?
Honestly, it was surreal.
One of the best things I ever did was that ended up working pretty well.
I could learn from you, man. You're 30 years old, working at a high level, and you got 2 kids. How do you balance everything?
I will specifically block out time. I've always found that I'm able to win in negotiations by just being Welcome back to the Shane Holmes Podcast. Today we have Shane Seo on. He is a young, innovative real estate investor, very successful guy. Thanks so much for coming on, Shane.
Thanks for having me, man.
So we've got Shane squared here. It's not very often you come across someone with the same name, and we're both on the same podcast today, which is pretty funny. We were just talking about that. So what is your next goal in real estate? I know you're developing a lot. You're talking about building some homes. Let's touch on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to get into, so I've done the single family fix and flips. I've done single family rentals, multifamily. Now I want to get into development. I just don't know how to put a nail in the wall. So I've got a lot to learn, really. But got a lot of good mentors, and they're just kind of helping me get my feet wet right now to start.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I find that not knowing where to put the nail is not that big of a deal, because I just had a meeting right before this with a friend of a friend, and this guy hit a real estate fund. They had over $500 million in assets, $500 million in assets, and they sold, and now he doesn't have to work. He just chills, he golfs, hangs out with his friends. Yeah. Super nice guy, and he was more than happy to tell me where to put that nail. He told me exactly where to put it and how hard to swing, and it was a really helpful meeting.
Yeah, and I'm more of a nerd, I guess. The financing part, like the structure, like I was curious, like how does these guys do these $100 million deals and they come out very little money, and how do they do the waterfalls? How do they cover the interest while they're getting the construction loans? And then how does that convert over? How do you deal with the banks? And I just think there's a lot to it. So I'm a nerdy guy, so I like to learn the intricacies. So.
Yeah, I actually asked the guy before this guy's name's Jim, and he said it to me pretty straightforward. A lot of times, if you're using your own capital or you're raising capital, make sure that your expenses are accurate before you go into the deal. Always look at your expenses, pad it a little bit, and really do a ton of due diligence to make sure that before you take on somebody else's money or dive into the deal yourself, like you have that all mapped out. Because the worst case scenario is running out of money and then having to raise more. Absolutely. Which is a huge pickle. So what I took away from my meeting with him was 2 things. 1, don't run out of fucking money. 2 was when you find the right deal, the money will come. So like for me and for what you're doing, I don't know if you're looking at raising capital, but when I started analyzing it, I was like, okay, do I raise money first or second? And my brain couldn't really fully comprehend, at least for how I operate, raising capital from people before I knew what I was going to do with it. So my strategy for what I'm doing is to start locking up these bigger deals. And then once you have a really good deal, sophisticated investor, you send them the package. If there's spread there, they're going to fucking do it. They're going to be very excited about putting their money in there, because they're going to tell that you're educated. You ran all the numbers. They see the upside, and then the money, like they'll give you the money.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was watching a YouTube video. There's this guy on there that talks about how to make funds. And I think you use like a Lamborghini, for example. Like, how much is this car, by the way?
This is like $330.
Yes,
I paid $330 for it,
and it's beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, but thank you.
Like, if we found a deal, someone selling it for $100,000, I could get that money easy. You know what I mean? Because it's got an amazing spread, and it's amazing deal and amazing margin. So. I try and think it's just kind of wrapping my head around raising capital. I've done everything with my own money or creatively. Yeah. So just raising money to me is kind of new.
Yeah, so, it's funny. We're both in the same boat. I have never raised $1 of capital from anybody.
Really?
All my flips and everything that I've done has been my own capital, all the rentals that I've bought, the single family houses, my portfolio, building them out into multi-unit. I've always just done with my own capital, and I've just kind of, it's incentivized me to work harder in my job, which is great because that keeps my income high because that's what I'm using to scale. But as I'm starting to get older, I'm starting to realize that I cannot out-earn other people's money.
Yeah.
Other people's money will always be more than your money. So I think we're both in the same boat right now of,
I know.
Let's start creating a scenario where everybody can win and we can scale faster than we could with our own capital.
Absolutely. And actually, I was telling you before the show, but I'd like for them to hear is like, I started a month before 30. So I just think it's incredible everything you've done be, right at 30, because like you're 10 years ahead of me, man. It's just
Thanks, bro.
Incredible. Well, 7 years. I'm 37, but
okay,
just crazy. Like I would have never had this car when I was 30.
Yeah. Yeah. And I talk about this on my other podcasts. Like it's all just from buying, from just like when I was 24, I bought my first piece of real estate. And a lot of people around me told me, don't do it. It's really risky. The house needs a lot of work. And I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account. I was literally selling houses to pay for the construction while I was doing it. Like I was really maxed out. But what did I have to lose? I didn't own anything. Yeah. I didn't have anything to lose. So like a lot of people don't really analyze that correctly of like, oh, well, I can't really quite afford it. Like you can't afford not to, bro. Like
That's true.
You don't have like, it's not like you have a portfolio of assets for them to go after.
Nothing to lose, everything to gain.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I ignored everybody, and I've always been pretty bullish. I don't go for home runs, but I ignored everybody and I went for it. And so now that's how I can buy cars and do dumb things, because I have the rental income to cover the payments and all of that. So that's how I've kind of mapped it out.
Yeah, I think Grant Cardone said it best, is that the most wealthy is the 1%. So 99% of the time we're getting our advice or like hate or whatever it is from, honestly, the less, the
99%
wealthy people. Yeah. So I think that everything that I've been successful on has been, everyone's always come against me, but that's the things that made me successful, I believe.
Yeah,
really.
100%.
Yeah,
like the times, that when you're doing what other people are like, don't do that. Because I was getting advice from people that were close to me when I was I had a deposit on a townhouse that I was going to buy. Mm-hmm. Cool, swanky, 2-story, like it was brand new construction, and it'd be like a cool flex. This other rundown piece of crap in an average neighborhood, but it was 2 units. And so I asked other people around me that were higher net worth, like, hey, I've got this kind of house I'm looking at, without saying the address. And they were like, what are you doing? Don't even think about buying that townhouse. Go buy that 2 unit. And that was like one of the best things I ever did, was ignoring some people and taking better advice from others. And that ended up working pretty well. So what are you doing now that's working for you really well in this moment?
Well, I know you do a lot of fix and flips. I started doing fix and flips, but I didn't like the fact I had to do it over and over again. And also, like I said, I'm not very good at construction. I don't know really what I'm doing. So, and also, I guess I'm one of those guys. I'm very conservative with my money, so I don't like to lose. And I started trying to figure out, how can I get passive income, instead of active income, which I need to do active too. So we still do like 20, 30 flips a year, but the majority of the things that we buy is rental, such as, passive. So I guess building up our single family portfolio, we've bought around 10 to 15, no, right at 12 million since October in single family. Mm-hmm. And then we just bought 59 units multifamily. Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to build up our real estate, I guess, rental portfolio. Yeah. And then the next thing I'm trying to get into is we're trying to get into office, because office is falling right now. Yeah. So we've got a 99,000 square foot office building we're trying to buy. It's near the Atlanta Braves Stadium. And then we talked to, I don't know if you know who Manny Koshman is. He's a big commercial guy. Yeah. So what he recommends is you put a cell tower, and that increases the revenue, juice up the apartment, I guess the units and the tenants, and kind of raise the NOI. Yep. And then it raises the value. So we're trying to get into that. We've been doing a lot of laundromats. We're probably going to do 4 or 5 more this year. We already have 2. So we're going to do that for tax reasons and cash flow. Yep. And then we've been building like a pathway to home ownership for certain people too. So we've been buying homes. We lease option the homes to people for a while, and then they either cash us out at the end of the option, or we'll convert it to seller finance, and then we'll make a note on it and sell the note, or sometimes keep it.
Cool.
So that's kind of what we've been in, doing some triple net lease conversions.
Yeah.
So we'll find an old commercial building for like $600,000-$700,000, put a good tenant into it, and then we'll sell it for $2 to $3 million.
Yep.
And that's been kind of what we've been really heavily getting into. It's a lot less work than the, fix and flips with single family at the moment. So we're just trying to simplify, make the maximum amount of profit with the least amount of effort is what we've been trying to do. Try to simplify things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what are the house prices at where you're buying?
Oh man, so we buy houses as cheap as $100,000 all the way to $500,000. That's the range. The best rental range is around $200,000 to $250,000.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We try and hold those. Yeah. And then, but if we get really amazing terms, we bought 4 homes. Each one was about $400,000. But we only had to put $30,000 down, and we got principal only payments of $1,250 a month on all of them. So those we're gonna hold.
Of course you are.
Yeah, we're gonna hold those, and we're renting those at $2,700 a month each.
Great.
So we have
that's a huge
cash
spread.
flow. Yeah,
I mean that's what $8,000 a month and positive or something on.
Yeah, well, about 1,000 each.
1,000 each. Okay, yeah.
And then
long day. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, yeah, I drove all the way from LA. There's a little bit of traffic, but yeah. So I don't know. I love creative finance. I know you. I want to hear how you structure yours. I know you use cash, or do you use hard money lending?
I use whatever I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I do is hard money for flips.
Okay.
And
that's good.
Because I have a good track history of paying them back, and I have other assets, I can leverage a second position on some of my other houses to use that to fund all the construction. So like now I just bought a house in Thousand Oaks.
Okay.
I'm
not familiar with the area, but that's a good area.
Yeah, it's a good area.
Okay,
we're in Westlake now, which is like a great area. Thousand Oaks is also a great area. It's a little cheaper than it is here.
Okay.
And so I bought a house out there, and for that deal, the bank actually wrote me a check for $80,000 at the closing.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah.
So my total construction cost is like $150K on the deal. Mm-hmm. So my total out of pocket is like $70,000 for the entire deal. And I also have a relationship with a bank where I don't have to make payments. They'll just escrow the payments up front. So they'll take out a little bit more on the loan and hold it for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm not having to deal with like the cash flow.
Oh, that's
so there's cool. There's like just different tactics I've learned over the 10 years that just fit my personal threshold of what I like to do. Mm-hmm. So hard money for flips, and then for this one I'm going to turn it into a rental because I'm building it.
So to go to perm finance, is that?
And then I'll flip it, and then I'll refi it, and do a rate and term. I don't have to pull cash out because I already got the cash, cool. and then just put that into permanent financing, like probably 7% or whatever it is. And then all the other houses that I own that I've retained long term are all they're all just fixed at 3%. I just got call it luck or whatever you want to call it, but I got bullish when I was young.
Yeah,
and I bought a few houses and turned them in. So what I do, I buy single family houses and I turn them into 3 units. You
turn them into 3 units?
3 units.
You rent by room, you mean? Or you convert them? Oh,
so
wow.
I'll buy a house. You convert the garage into 1 rental unit, and then you build another unit in the backyard. And that's like my bread and butter right now of how I'm still finding cash flow.
I've never heard of someone doing that. I mean, I've seen some houses we viewed that were split kind of like that, but I've never heard of someone doing that. That's cool.
Yeah, in California, it's like it's catching on. Like more and more people are doing it. Because if you buy a house, even like this house I bought for $630,000, which is a really, really good deal out here. A seller absolutely didn't want to put it on the market, and I tell people when I buy a house from them, you are going to make way more money if you put this on the market. And didn't want to do it. Asked me how much I'd pay, so we settled at $630,000. And even though I got a crazy good deal on it, I have to build those units to make money. If I kept that house at 7% and just rented it, I'd lose money every month. So in California, you have to be really creative to force that cash flow, and that's the same mindset that I'm looking at when I'm starting to move into the multifamily investing space. Is can I find a 10 unit where I can build more units? Because I can build these ADUs for way cheaper than anybody else can because of the volume of construction that I do. So I'm looking at where can I find opportunities to build more ADUs instead of being able to build 2. Can I build 4? Can I build 6? Can I build 8? And then also, if you buy something where the rents are low, we just slowly vacate the tenants, fix up the units, and then increase the NOI like that. So I'm kind of looking at this from a non-biased perspective of I'll buy fucking anything that I can make work and I'll use whatever tools I have at my disposal to make those kinds of deals happen.
And that's the more that you have in your tool belt, the more you're able to get done. Did you have a mentor teach you that, or did you see that on YouTube, or how did you come up with that?
I just have a lot of knowledge in the ADU space because I've built like, I don't know how many at this point, but I've either advised or built at least 10. So I know the market, I know the cost, I know how long it's going to take, I know the permitting process. And if I can apply that same mindset to the multifamily space, it'll be similar, it'll be different because I'm getting into a new animal and there's new tricks to learn. But if I can keep that same mindset of how can I be creative to increase the cash flow on these assets, that's how I see that working.
Do you, on your rentals here, I don't know much about California law, but everyone tells me it's a horrible landlord state.
It is.
But because I'm from Georgia, so it's very simple. We can get them out in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But here, you said it takes 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, if you're in, I mean, during COVID, you were literally screwed. Like during COVID, moratorium? If you were in LA and you had a tenant that was like, I am not paying, nothing you could do. People floated 18 months of mortgage payments, lost their houses. It was a mess.
Could you evict them from defaulting on the lease in a different way? For example, like they had their car parked in the grass or the yard. Could you evict for that, just not the money-wise, or they were strict no matter what?
Not really. During COVID, like you couldn't really get people out. Now, so right now we're on the border of LA and Ventura County.
Okay.
LA County, way more tenant protective. Ventura County is a little bit more pro landlord. So if someone's not paying their rent, which makes a lot of sense, they probably got to go. Ventura County, getting them out is a little easier. You're probably looking at that like 3 months to, whatever, maybe 6 months. LA County, the courts are backed up. It's a less landlord friendly environment. So you're going to have a harder time getting them out.
Okay. Yeah. And we want it to be fair, by the way, for those that's listening, we want it to be fair, but sometimes it does lean toward the tenant and then they just don't pay. They take advantage of us, I believe. I think as landlords get a bad rap sometimes.
I think landlords get a bad rap because probably there's a large majority of tenants, but I look at it very black and white. If you're not paying your rent, you have to go.
Absolutely.
It's like if you're not paying your rent, it's like if I fail to perform on a business agreement or something like that, the rug gets pulled.
Absolutely.
And I just look at things very black and white. Like to say that with a grain of salt, if someone's misses a month of rent, for example, let's talk. Let's see how we can work through it. They missed 2 months. Like, let's work together to make this work. It's not like, but if they're consistently missing and they're blowing you off and whatever, they got to go.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's how I look at it.
In fact, we don't call our tenants, we call them clients. Is how we do, because I feel like it's more respectable that way. That. And to let them say, hey, we're here to work with you. But the moment, and we, some tenants get nasty no matter what, but we always try and be nice first until they either ghost us or they try and threaten. We had a lady do check fraud, real bad check fraud. And because we caught her on 4 months of check fraud, it was like $12,000. We said, hey, look, we're going to have to evict you now. We're going to have to start the process. And all she did was threaten us and stuff, So that's whenever we just say, then we got to be strong and be nasty back, I guess, if you want to call it nasty. But I've always been curious about the California laws. Do you know much about the commercial tenant laws?
I don't operate heavily in the commercial space, but so no, I couldn't speak towards like office space and things like that. I do know that in California, commercial leases are much more ironclad, landlord friendly.
That's what I've heard.
It's a business agreement.
Yeah.
And they're much easier to deal with.
Okay, cool.
So, did you just fly out here today?
No, I came yesterday.
You came yesterday?
Yesterday.
You got anything else on the docket? What you got cooking?
Yeah, I'm going to meet with a friend tomorrow in Malibu and just have lunch with him.
There you go.
Yeah, and then I'm going to Vegas tomorrow evening. And then, do you know who Brad Lee is?
Yeah, I love Bradley.
I
Yeah.
have a podcast with him tomorrow. Yeah, and then it's my buddy's birthday. His name is Tanner. So shout out to Tanner. It's his
Shout out
birthday.
Tanner. Happy birthday, Tanner.
Yeah, 21. So he's going to try blackjack and craps for the first time.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll be there with my $100 because I don't gamble much, but I'll try it out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you get hooked up with Brad Lee?
Well, actually, do you know who Glenn Stearns is?
You mentioned him before. It sounds familiar, but I'm not putting a face to it.
Okay, so I watch Discovery Channel, and you've heard of Undercover Boss before, right?
Yes.
There's Undercover Billionaire, okay, where they give a billionaire.
I've seen that.
Yeah?
That him?
Yeah, he's in the first season.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, so they give a billionaire $100, a phone with no contacts, like a junk vehicle, and he has 90 days to turn it to $1 million business. That's the challenge. And I watched that show, and I said, man, this is incredible. I learned so much from it. And then after a year or two of just kind of sending emails and all, I got a lunch with him. Glenn Stearns, probably the best mentor I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
He's humble. He's down to earth, very successful, and he's just full of great wisdom, really. I met with him. Him and his wife, Mindy, are great. Went to their home, got to know him well. And his wife and them reached out to me and said, do you want to go to Richard Branson's island, Necker Island? I was like, of course.
That's insane,
yeah, so
dude.
I went to Necker Island, and Brad, Andy Elliott, Mr. Muzzle, all these guys were there.
Yeah.
They were there 7 days. Got to spend some time with Richard Branson. Glenn just learned a lot.
Yeah.
Came back, and then I hired 3 guys, the best guys. So it's Tim Stone, David Retteneller, and Colin White. And Tim and David are kind of helping me with personal branding. And I'm more of an introverted person, by the way. So being in front of a camera really is not like my comfort zone. So I'm learning. But they've been getting me on some podcasts, and they reached out to certain people. And Bradley's people wrote back and said, yeah, we'll see Shane. So
That's cool.
That's tomorrow. So I'm excited.
Congrats, bro. Where's that
thank you.
stationed out of?
His
Vegas?
studio's in Vegas.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yes. I've never been to his studio there, but we'll go.
Oh, that's right, because he's next to Ryan Pineda.
We were on Javi and Brian's podcast at Ryan's place. I haven't met Ryan. I saw you did a podcast with Ryan. Though.
Yeah.
How was that? How'd you get that?
Yeah, it was cool. We just DM'd and then hopped on, flew out there and interviewed him, and it was cool.
He's killing it, isn't he, man?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
impressive.
But no, that's fun stuff. I can't believe you got to go to Richard Branson's island, dude. That's crazy. What was that like?
Honestly, it was surreal. It like pulling up, you're like, okay, I watched some YouTube videos before I went. I said, okay, kind of have an idea of what to expect. But once you're there, they spoil you so much. Not only the rooms and everything beautiful, like it's got the perfect water and just like, just animals and all this cool stuff. But there's like staff everywhere. Anytime I want food or drink, they're like, do you want some? Do you want some? I said, yes. And they just, they spoil you all day. And I get to sit there and watch Richard play chess. I got to be there during a really high moment for him. Like when he was speaking to us, he said, hold on 1 second, please. And he turned on the TV, and on a live feed, we got to watch his shuttle, like his space shuttle, go into space. So I thought that was cool. I was like, I'm here with Richard Branson as he's watching, and he's nervous because his people, don't want nothing to happen. But he was just super excited. Then the next day, an earthquake happened. I think it was in Morocco. I think is where it was. Messed up one of his hotels and put like 100 or 128 staff homeless.
Wow.
So I got to see him on extreme high and extreme low and watch him from behind the scenes, how he managed that emotionally. How does he handle that pressure? Because we're trying to catch up to that level. On a scale 1 to 10, I feel like we're at like a 2 or 3, right? And they're like at a 9, 10,
Yeah,
so I like to go to see that guy handle his stressful points, at that high of a level. And it was just really cool, man.
And what was it like watching him navigate through that?
Well, he was not, honestly, he was super nice. He still was playing chess with people, but then I'd see him go off and he'd handle certain things, and he'd always come back with a smile. Like, you never know he was going through, like me, I'd be like, I never saw him do that. So if anything, I learned, I don't know how some people think of Donald Trump, but he did say one thing that was really good. Is he said, to be a good business person, you have to learn how to handle pressure.
Yeah.
And that went into my mind when I saw Richard. I was like, man, he is handling pressure like a champ.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
He thought he was still thinking clearly. He was still nice to all of us. In fact, when we was leaving the dock, he ran and did a cannonball in the water. You know, he's like this older guy, just
Loving life.
And
That's
he wakes
so
up
cool.
every morning at 5. He plays tennis. He'll swim 3 miles in the ocean. He's riding he's just amazing. To me, it was very admirable to see that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's in that 5 a.m. club. I don't know if you ever read that or listen to that audiobook. Like, you know, they wake up early, drink coffee, do exercise, swim, do that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy what a difference that makes. Like, I don't know if you're into that at all, but I do 6 a.m. club.
I'm more like a 9 a.m. club.
Yeah. But when I find when I start my day, get a workout in, mm-hmm. get up early, get to spend a little bit of time with my kids, like I'm just functioning at a very high level that day. And I'm just ready for it.
Well, that's another thing. So I'm 37. I have no children, and I'm busy, and I've got a lot of stuff to deal with. I can learn from you, man. You're 30 years old, working at a high level, and you got 2 kids. You know, I think that's impressive. So how do you balance everything?
I will specifically block out time for my family. So like today, we shifted the podcast forward 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And after that, it's like, I got to be with my family, because if I don't very intentionally create that time, it evaporates. Yeah. And then your kids are only little for so long. And it makes me sad even thinking about it, but your kids are only little for so long. So you have to really intentionally spend that time with them and be there when you're with them, or else it's just not.
And be present.
And be present. Yeah. So like, that's kind of how I manage having kids and business. When I'm working, I'm fucking working. Like if I'm in the office, I'm on the phone, like I'll make high use of time. I'll have my assistant drive me so I can be on my phone. Like I am maximizing every single second I have when I'm working. And when I'm not, boop, phone down. I've got an hour with my family. You can't touch me for that hour unless it's something that's like, you know, very pressing.
Yeah, it has to be an emergency.
Yeah, but generally speaking, it's usually not that serious. Like, I think we like to overhype how important things are, but at the end of the day, if something sits for 30 minutes to an hour,
it's not
your world's not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've had to do to maximize time.
Well, that goes back to Richard Branson, man, to see how he was going through a really crazy time, and he still was there with us, doing cannonballs, you know, playing. He still made it all look just easy. He was like, you know what? This is as worse as it can get. It's not going to, it's like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm trying to view it from that spectrum, you know?
Yeah, a lot of times I find like when a deal's falling apart or whatever the case is, freaking out is the last thing that's going to put it back together. You know what I mean? Like getting into that panic state, much easier said than done. But going into that panic state generally puts other people in a panic state. Those around you, the other people in the deal. And I've always found that I'm able to win in negotiations by just being stable. Even if someone says some outlandish thing to me, I'm just, all right, so we're going to close, or you want to keep yelling? Like, what are we doing here? And that, yeah. So what about yourself? What do you do to maximize your time?
So instead of in the 5 a.m. club, I stay up to 2 every morning, 1 to 2. That's when everyone is asleep. No one's calling me. And I'd say from 10:30 to 2 in the morning, I'm sourcing deals. I'm finishing out some emails that I may have missed. I'm creating business plans or underwriting a deal. That's my time. I wake up about 8:30 or 9, so I don't wake up like super early. I have a fiance, so I spend some time with her and give her first priority, of course, you know. But then after that, it's just I usually try and walk and talk on the phone. It's just instead of just sit. I try and make sure I make 1 or 2 good contacts a day. I think for relationship wise, friend wise. So me and you can be friends and business people. You know, we may do a deal together, we may not, or we could just be good friends, and I'll learn from you and you learn from me. I think relationship is very important. And then I really usually have 4 or 5 things going at one time, and I'm just always saying, which piece can I move forward on each of them throughout the day? Just one step on each one of those goals is how I do it, instead of just trying to push one until it's done, because then the other 4 will get lost. You know, sometime. So, a lot of people
in that realm of goals and moving things forward are constantly trying to hit that home run. Mm-hmm. And you and I being in real estate, we know there are no home runs.
No.
The time is the ultimate home run. Mm-hmm. Buying a deal and just letting time take it the rest of the way is the home run to me. So like as long as you're getting your pieces in the field and you're getting a base hit there, I don't even like to think of it in base hits. As long as you're building your base, right? So if anyone's watching this on YouTube, we're young. So like in our 30s, it's still young. You want to get your base wide because then time is going to bring it up, and the wider your base is, the more you're growing, the more assets you have growing. So I'm all about just responsibly accumulating assets that don't even have to be fucking home runs. As long as you're just getting more pieces in the field, we've got time, bro. Like we don't have to hit home runs.
Take your time. Yeah. Grant says it good. Don't get rich quick. Get rich for sure. You know, you heard that? So you gotta take your time. And I do believe in hard work. So I'm a Christian guy. So the Bible says do everything as if you're doing it for God. So in my opinion, if I, like, for example, if you knew God or Jesus was going to come to your home to visit, I think everything, in my opinion, I'd have my house impeccable. You know, I'd have everything ready for him. And so do everything to the best of your ability. So I give 100% everything I do, but you also don't want to rush something. It's like you say you have a 4-year-old, taking your 4-year-old and trying to make him go and cut the grass on a lawnmower. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. You can't just rush something. In real estate, too, going too slow is not good either. Yeah. Because you said you started when you were 20 and you're 30 now. You've been in it 10 years, man. You've been in it 3 years longer than me. I wanted to start when I was 25. And I looked at properties. I watched videos on YouTube. I talked to mentors. I got houses under contracts. I wish I would have bought because I didn't. But for 5 years, I got maybe 30 or 32 homes under contract, and I'd cancel because I wanted to pull the trigger, but I was too afraid. And I didn't get the people around me. I didn't have the resources. And I guess I was just too, I don't know. I just, for some reason or another, I put it off too much. Yeah. And it took me 5 years to get my first deal. Yep. So that's too slow. So yeah, you don't want to be to the extreme too slow, but you don't want to be too extreme trying to get it done too quickly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Good balance.
I just had some I think the kid was right around 20, early 20s, come up to me at lunch. I had my station wagon parked out front, which is an Audi RS6. So if you know cars and you're into it and whatever, and he comes up to me, he's like, if you had any advice for me, I'm 20 years old. What do I do in business? And I just told him, don't be afraid to go outside the box. Like you're talking about with creative financing, outwork everybody around you. Anyone that's around you, make sure that you're working not only harder, but more efficiently than anyone around you. And you got to trust your gut and just go for it. Like you got to take the risk. No risk, no reward.
Easier said than done, but it is 100% true. If you can learn that discipline to do that, you'll conquer a ton. Yeah. For sure.
If you're doing all three of those things, it's kind of hard to lose, especially on the creative side. So what are you doing with creative financing to get deals?
So one thing is I noticed I do the traditional stuff, buying with cash. We'll do that sometime. The traditional way, which is using financing. But then the creative factor, if you can, some people either do owner finance, subject to, like some of those things, but really there's 33 different ways to buy. So like I said, the more you have in your tool belt, the more you can more likely have the chance to get a deal. Yeah. So, oh man, there's a lot to it. I'd say about 90% of my stuff that we own now, we just went over 400 single family. All of those, I'd say 95% are all creative financing. Yeah. With either no money down or like very small. And then the multifamily, my first apartment complex, it was 44 units. I bought that. I was willing to give the guys like 90% of the money that they wanted and then have them seller finance the land that was behind it, which was 10% of it. But as we started, diving into it, I realized they had a big tax problem. So I sat down with them, their tax attorney and all that, and we figured out the better way to buy was creatively in the way that I had come up with. Yeah. And I got it with no money down.
You don't want to pay the taxes. Yeah.
Got it no money down. It was cash from about $4,000 or $5,000. Yeah. So the amount of rent that was coming in was $18,000 a month. The payment to them was $12,000 a month. And then in the first 60 days, we rose it from 18 to 28,000 in rents,
Let's
which
go.
now we have right at 45,000.
Jeez.
Yeah, so that was the first creative piece, was buying it owner finance with no money down to give them a chance to get their, I guess, taxes or stuff, like tax plan in order. Then I paid $100,000 to go do the coaching with Grant. So my first meeting with Grant, went in, talked to him. I was asking about agency financing and just what should I do. He made one phone call, okay? And it got me amazing terms. And basically, I did a cash-out refinance. I got $888,000 tax-free in my bank account from the refinance. And I got amazing terms. Non-recourse loan, 30 years, 5.7% interest. And this was really not too long ago. And interest rates were a little higher at that point.
Yeah.
So it showed, to me, I guess, creatively, I think that you can get some amazing deals done, and it did help the seller. You were talking about win-wins earlier. This was a win for the seller, a win
Huge
for me,
win.
and then it helps build my future. And then of course the bank, they love it too, because it's like $150,000 in closing cost. So anyway, creative with single family, multifamily. Like I said, those were 44 units. We just got 59 units. We came out 32,000 down on a 59 unit apartment complex. I don't know if you have.
How do you source most of those deals?
Well, believe it or not, the first apartment complex I found on LoopNet.
Really?
So the story is maybe 5-6 years ago, I saw the apartments on there. I was doing single family, and I saw the units on there. They wanted $1.9 million for 44 units. But in my mind, I'm like, no, that's in the millions. 44 units. That's Grant Cardone stuff. In my mind, I was like, that's Grant Cardone stuff. I'm a small guy. I've only been in real estate a year and a half at this time.
Yeah.
And I just said, no, I'm not going to look. A whole year goes by, and I see the apartments are still on there, but they rose the price from 1.9 to 2.6 million. And I said, oh my gosh, they didn't sell it for a year, and now they're going to try and raise the price. I said, I still don't want it. Later on that night, I was watching a Grant Cardone video, and I mentioned him a lot because honestly, he's the reason I wanted to try multifamily, I guess, But he said, even if you can't buy something, like you want to get into something, just be around it.
Yeah.
So
that's so true.
So I went to LoopNet. I called. It ended up being the sellers directly. I said, well, I'm not going to buy it. It's overpriced. It didn't sell at $1.9 million. Now they're trying to sell it for 2.6. I'm not going to get it, but I need to be around it. I'm going to do what Grant says. So I went to the apartments, met with the owners, the greatest guys, by the way. I wasn't expecting to just have amazing, sellers. I was expecting to have some redneck guys out in the middle of the wood, because I'm from Georgia. And I thought, these are going to be redneck guys. They want too much. They unreasonable. No, they ended up being the sweetest, greatest guys, 3 brothers. But as we were looking at the units and everything, it was behind a Starbucks and a Chick-fil-A. I'm talking about like 150 yards. It was perfect location, near Walmart, everything, near the interstate. The things that they were saying sounded so much like my single-family home sellers that were motivated to sell. Pitched them terms, said no. Met with them again a couple weeks later, pitched them terms, no. Met with them again, said, hey, here's 5 different other options. No, no, the whole time. But I followed up, and 5-6 months later, we actually came to a deal. And funny enough, before I came to this podcast, I was talking to that seller again, and I said, hey, I'd like to do a podcast with you saying, hey, look, this is what I bought. Can you tell the audience your interaction with me? Why would you sell me the deal? And he said, persistence. Yeah. So it was persistence, and that's what Grant teaches too. But anyway, just to sum it up quickly without boring you, is I ended up buying it for $2.5 million with only $12,000 a month payment. I mean, small.
Crazy.
In a year and a half, it was appraised at $5.2 million, which is amazing. Woo! Everything Grant Cardone said about apartments was correct. How you force appreciate, the tax benefits all over the place is just amazing, and it worked. So even recently, this last year, so that was on LoopNet. The one we just got, 59 units, was sent to me by brokers. Mm-hmm. And you're a broker, right? Mm-hmm. An agent or a broker, or both?
So I own the firm, so I'm broker.
Oh, you're the broker. Okay.
But I sell too. Yeah.
Okay. So here was this was a much more complicated one. Okay, is that the seller had his selling agent.
Mm-hmm.
One of my buddies, who's an agent, brought it to me. So both need to get their commission.
Yeah.
How do the agents get paid if I only come out $32,000? How do they get paid a commission?
They don't.
$5 to $6 million bucks. You see?
Yeah.
So so how that worked is I sat down with the seller, the selling agent, the buyer agent, and the seller's attorney, which was his tax attorney, I guess family attorney. And I brought the reality of the situation to them, that they have a prepayment penalty on their loan. Their cost basis is so low, and just a bunch of other things. When they saw the reality of the situation, that the agents both saw that the only way this could be sold to me without hurting the seller is to do it creatively. I told them, I said, here's how it's going to work. It's not what I want to do, but it's how we can get the deal done. Is you guys need, what we're going to do is every time I make a monthly payment to the seller, he needs to pay a monthly payment to you guys. And then as we get past a 3-year period from the time that I bought, and coincidentally, he has a balloon 3 years from the month I bought it. And
Perfect.
he has a huge prepayment penalty.
Yeah.
So I said, well, when we get close to that balloon, your prepayment is also going to expire as well. I'll cash you out then, and then both agents will get paid out.
They get their nut too.
The bulk. So
yeah,
they got paid up front a portion of the $32,000.
Yep.
It's not the full.
Yep.
But they got enough to feel good, and they got a monthly cash. I think each is getting one's getting $1,000, one's getting like $700. I guess there's some kind of different split. Mm-hmm. And then at the end they'll get their cash out. Yeah. At the same time, the seller will get paid, and he has the option to get his affairs in order, because he has a cost base of $1.5 million.
Oh, so he has a big tax burden.
Yeah, he has a big tax burden, and he does not want to do a 1031. So this extended that a little bit more for him, because he didn't want to pay the tax bill and the prepayment penalty. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it worked for him and worked for me. We've already rose the rents we're going on 4 or 5 months. We've risen the rents about $28,000 more a month.
Wow.
Than what it was.
Crazy.
So it's a win for me, and I get the depreciation. The seller can deal with his tax burden throughout the year instead of all at once as well. Mm-hmm. So creative finance, in my opinion, is probably the best way to buy. In fact, we sell that way too sometime. I think I've run off your question, but single family, that's how we did some creative financing too. So I've told you an example of that. Multifamily, that's what we did there. We did triple net lease conversions. So I bought a few commercial buildings with no money down. Mm-hmm. One of them I bought for $400,000, no money down. My payments are $3,700 a month to the seller. And then I put in a tenant, and I did a little bit of a tweak. This one's a little different, but we did a different dispo method as well. Which do you know what a master lease is?
No.
Well, master lease, the most famous one is like the Empire State Building. So what it is instead of having imagine an apartment building that has 50 different tenants in it, 50 doors. You have to collect from each tenant, or you can have one tenant that is renting all the units, and you only deal with him, but he deals with everyone.
Yeah.
It's a good alternative to a property management company.
Yeah.
So what we did is we bought the commercial building, $400,000. My payment's $3,700 a month. I sold it on a master lease with an option to buy for $1.3 million. They pay me $11.5 a month. We pay out $37,000, and they pay the taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. It's like a triple net.
Love it.
So we've been doing some of those, and that's another creative way. What else? We're trying to get into farms, which have good tax benefits. We've bought into Costa Rica as well. We bought 2 cleaners recently, and we converted those to triple net. So I paid $1.1 million for the building. I did pay cash on that. I don't usually do that, but I did on that one. And we're going to sell those around $2.5 to $2.9. Mm-hmm. And then I sold the business for $1 million. So I was able to recoup my money out of it. So I still had $100,000 locked into it. But then the tenants pay me as a triple net, and I'll sell it. So that's another creative way. So we're trying to mix mergers and acquisitions and real estate together. And do you partner with people? Is it 100% independent? How do you typically structure your business? So far I have not partnered with anyone. I've had private lenders before when I first started, and I just started 2 hedge funds. One's a 506B fund, and one's a 506C fund, which is our debt funds. And I've maybe raised like maybe $2 million or something, and we've dispersed that. We do a thing called a 60-40 method that I came up with. 60% is in boring assets that just more stable, like pay in a good,
it's like a dividend
good
stock.
market, bad market is the same, but at least it's cross collateralized amongst a bunch of properties instead of one. And then the other 40% of the capital we use in a little bit more active, like the fix and flips or the triple net lease conversions, or we'll do some lending and stuff too. But yeah, I just ran off. I'm so sorry, man. I just realized.
No, you're dropping tons of nuggets for everybody. And even the verbiage we're using about 1031 exchange and 506 or what was it?
506C means 506C means you have to be an accredited investor. So
got it.
Usually millionaires or high net worth individuals will be in that one. So
yeah. And this is all great information for not only me, but for people that are looking to get into the swim with the big dogs. Well, Shane, thank you so much for coming on, bro. This has been an absolute pleasure. Tons of great information for everybody. I'm very excited to connect with Shane Squared. And till next time.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Nice to meet you, and I'll see you next time.
Peace out, guys.